In this episode of Mad Skills, you'll learn how to add keyframes to an animation using motion layout. A keyframe lets you modify the path, alpha, or any other attribute of a view as it transitions from start to end. If you're new to motion layout, be sure to check out the last episode to learn how to use constraint sets and transitions to build the path from start to end. In this video, we'll explore how to use keyframes to modify a path by adding rotation and translation to change the path of a single view as it moves across the screen. We're going to use the ViewPager integration sample from the motion layout integrations to explore keyframes. Let's start by taking a look at how the project is structured. In this sample, an animated header is driven by the current position of a ViewPager. In the layout, you have a ViewPager on the bottom, a tab bar above it that can select the current tab in the ViewPager, and on the very top of the screen, there's a motion layout that contains the view that will animate as the ViewPager changes its position. Before we dive into the motion layout and keyframes, let's look at how we can drive the motion layout by the progress of the ViewPager. Over in the activity, we set up an on-page change listener that listens for updates to the ViewPager position. Every time the user scrolls the ViewPager, on-page scrolled will be called with the current progress. Then we just coerce the values from the ViewPager into the range motion layout needs, and that's 0f to 1f. Now, I got this formula by doing a bit of algebra on paper, which is my recommendation whenever you have to make a formula like this. And then we can tell motion layout to snap to the current position between 0f and 1f, and it will immediately jump to that place. Note, we don't ask it to animate. Instead, we set the progress constantly as the ViewPager swipes. Okay, that wired up. Let's switch back and see the existing constraint sets in our motion layout. In the start constraints, the rocket is pushed to the left and the background is anchored to the bottom. And in the end constraints, the rocket is pushed to the right and the background is anchored to the top. If we preview it now, you'll see that both the background and the rocket move along a linear path from start to end. And this is already a kind of fun animation, but we can make it more interesting by using keyframes. Keyframes let us modify the path from start to end in a transition without adding more constraint sets. You can use keyframes to modify any attribute as the view animates, such as location, position, or even color or alpha. You can define a keyframe in the motion editor using the Create Keyframes button in the Details section. It gives you a lot of options. Let's get started by creating a key position. A key position lets you add an extra point on the path between start and end. This lets you define curves or even sharp corners in the path. In this animation, we want to have the rocket settle to the bottom of the screen when the middle tab is selected. This happens to be at 50% progress, since we only have 3 tabs. In the key position dialog, select the ship emoji as the view to modify, then set the position to 50. Keyframes can be specified at positions between 0 and 100, with 50 being halfway through the animation. And we'll set the type to parent relative. This will define a position in the coordinate system of the parent view. Now, this is useful when moving a view inside a containing view like we're doing here. The other options are good for when you want to modify the path by adding a curve or other embellishment. We'll leave %x alone, and this will cause motion layout to use whatever the default x value was calculated for frame position 50. In %y, put 0.8 or 80% down the motion layout. I'll click Add. And you can see that the preview is updated to show the curve downward. If we play the animation now, we'll see our new path in action. The rocket dips down before going back up again. You can define multiple key positions in the same view. At frame position 25, let's add a key position to move the rocket to 0.6 parent relative. This will make it go up a little bit before it comes down at the middle, making the animation just a little bit more interesting. Now, there's one more key position to define in this animation. We want that background to be relatively stationary for the first half of the animation. Right now, it's moving linearly from start to end. Let's add another key position, this time selecting the background. Then, at frame position 50, we'll add a delta relative key position. This is a position that's relative to the movement of the view, which is great for changing the speed of a linear motion like this. By using a %y of 0.05 or 5%, we can say that at frame position 50, only move the background 5% of its total movement. You can see a new line was added to the transitions details section for the background with the keyframe in it. And if we scrub, you can see the background doesn't move much in the first half of the animation, but then it moves quickly after the midpoint. With just a few key positions, we've managed to make this animation quite a bit more interesting. Next, we'll add a few keyframes that modify the rotation to make this rocket take off. Keyframes let you modify any attribute, not just positions. Let's add some rotations to the rocket that leads its path changes slightly. This will kind of give the illusion of thrust mechanics. Add a new keyframe, but this time choose a key attribute. A key attribute lets you modify attributes of a view during the transition. Select the space emoji view and add an attribute at position 10. This is a bit before our keyframe at position 25. Then specify an attribute of rotation in the dropdown, and you can select the attribute for the keyframe by clicking on the diamond in the transition details. Let's modify the rotation to be 22, which will kind of make the rocket point slightly up because of the way the emoji is structured. Then add the rotation attribute to the landed position at frame 50. Add another key attribute on the space emoji, specify the frame position of 50, ensure it's modifying rotation. Then select the new attribute and update the rotation to 40, which will make the rocket appear horizontal. And if we preview the animation again, you can see we've built a fairly dynamic animation with just a few keyframes. Key positions let us build a complex path, and key attributes let us rotate the rocket to give the illusion of acceleration. For most animations, these are all the tools you need to use motion layout. In this video, you learned how to use keyframes to build complex paths from start to end. In the next video, you'll learn how to add multiple constraint sets to a single motion layout. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for notifications as soon as new episodes are published. To learn more about motion layout, check out the Code Lab and motion layout integration samples that these videos are based on in the links below.